Hello and welcome to Arkansas Style. I am your host, Nicole Neiman, and we're so happy to have you with us today for a very special show. We're dedicating this entire hour to Go Red for Women, an incredible initiative by the American Heart Association that's all about raising awareness, advocating for research, and empowering women to take charge of their heart health. Heart disease remains the leading cause of death for women, yet it's often overlooked, underdiagnosed, and misunderstood. So today we're shining a light on the importance of early detection, groundbreaking research in women's heart health, and the impact mental health has on our hearts. We'll also discuss disparities in care for minority communities, the urgent need for CPR training in schools, and we're even getting a refresher on the importance of knowing hands-only CPR. It's going to be an eye-opening, informative, and inspiring hour with leading experts, survivors, and advocates who are making a real difference every single day. And to start, we're joined by a friend of the show, Michelle Rupp. She knows firsthand just how critical awareness and regular checkups are, and today she's sharing her personal journey with heart disease. Michelle, you're too young.
I am.
I mean, really. But
yes.
This is exactly why we're talking about this conversation, is
That's
because it affects women in all these different kinds of ways. Well,
it does.
So happy you're here on the couch.
Yeah,
okay?
Thank you. It's weird to be on the couch, but I love it.
I'm just happy you're here and alive, and with your beating, beautiful heart.
Yes, thank you.
All right, well, let's start at the beginning. What was your diagnosis?
So I was diagnosed in the end of 2005 with Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. Now that's an electrical problem. The heart, you've got your plumbers and you've got your electricians. You've got your muscle part of the heart, you've got your electrical part of the heart. Mine was an electrical issue, and so what that meant was my heart was, at different times, it would beat over 200 beats a minute. There were times where it was 408 was the highest that it actually got, and but it was sporadic when it happened. And I had finished a 5K, and we happened to catch it in the moment when my heart went into this irregular heartbeat. So at that point, we then had data for Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. That was December of 2005. January of 2006, I had a procedure locally. When my cardiologist went in, she discovered that, oh, you don't have just one extra wire, electrical wire, you have a sheath of wires. And it's in a little bit different location than where we expected to see it. And so as a result, they were unable to do much intervention. And so it required me to go out of state. And so at that point, my parents and I made the trip out of state for a little bit more of a lengthy procedure, because ultimately they needed to burn those wires to sever that extra connection. And so it was while we were out of state. I had the surgery done. I flatlined during the procedure, and thankfully, clearly, the cardiologist intervened, and my story wasn't over. My story didn't end there on that table, and so that was 19 years ago. And since then, I've run 1 ultra marathon, 18 full marathons, 40 half marathons. I mean, and I'm running this weekend. So, it was a great case scenario. I'm no longer under the care of a cardiologist. She said, as soon as they severed that connection, that electrical accessory pathway, technically is what it's called, she said, you're good. Now I'll happily take your copay, but I don't really need to see you anymore. And so I am completely healed and healthy, and this is all part of my story. And of course, what I do for the business community and my company, that's all part of telling the story.
What
so
a
there was
story.
A lot there.
Yeah, what a story it is. Yeah, I mean, really, beginning, middle, and end, and a happy ending for sure.
Definitely.
Do you mind if I back it up just a tiny bit? Because, from where I sit, this is terrifying, to hear this.
And it was.
I'm
in the
sure.
moment. Mm-hmm.
So when we go back to, the beginning, were you feeling your heart fluttering and beating like this? So you physically had some indicators that there was something going on?
I did. Back, some of my earliest recollection is 1983. Okay, so we're early 80s, and I'm a youngster, and I can just feel my heart racing. And that's how I would describe it. And you could put your hand on my heart and feel it beating through my chest. Now, medical science in 1983 is not what it was in 2005. That's not what it is in 2025. So at that point, it was, you're having an anxiety attack. or it's stress. You need to relax. You need to, just calm yourself down. And I knew even at a young age in my knower, this is not an anxiety attack. I mean, yes, I'm trying to calm myself down. Also, I'm kind of freaking out too because I know this isn't right. But we needed to catch it in the moment to have the data. And that's what we had at the end of the 5K that I ran in 2005. Because during that 5K, my heart went into the irregular pattern. After the race was over with, I then drove myself to the emergency room and said, although I've just finished a 5K, something is not right. And of course, they took my pulse and realized something was terribly wrong.
Folks at home, I mean, if you have ever seen a person advocate for themselves like Michelle has just done, look at what happens.
Yeah.
I know it can be incredibly scary to kind of face your fears and what you maybe think is happening. But if you don't address it, the consequences could be much different.
You're so right. And we as women, we are so God made us to be so consumed and concerned with everyone else and not with ourselves. And so that's always been the takeaway that I've wanted people to understand, particularly women, is that we know in our knower if something isn't right, no matter what that might be. And if you receive a diagnosis, or if you were to receive the language of, oh, you're fine, everything's okay, I might encourage you to get a second opinion.
Yeah.
I might encourage you to be your own voice and to advocate for yourself. No, something is not right, and respectfully, either you'll help me get to the bottom of it, or I'll find someone who will.
Well, today I hope there's two takeaways from the show. One is, using your story as a sign of all the advances that the medical professionals have done in the heart area. So there is incredible hope, and to let women know to be their best advocate.
Be their best advocate, and have that resilience and that determination, because your story can end and should end very well.
Look at that, and she's still running.
And I'm still running.
Trying to catch her. Well, great to see you, honey.
Good to see you.
Happy with such a beautiful ending.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. If you'd like to follow more of Michelle's story and keep up with her daily adventures, be sure to check her out on her Instagram at Memorable Results Media. Now, as we continue our Go Red for Women special, we're shifting focus to the critical importance of research in women's heart health. Dr. Jean McSweeney is here to discuss how dedicated studies are uncovering unique risk factors for women and helping to improve heart disease outcomes. Stick around, you're watching Arkansas Style.
You're watching Arkansas Style on KARK.
Welcome back to Arkansas Style. Now let's take a deeper look at something that's crucial to our health, women's heart research. Heart disease affects women differently than men, and dedicated research is key to uncovering those unique risk factors and developing strategies to reduce our risks. Today, I'm joined by Jean McSweeney, RN, PhD, and Professor Emeritus at UAMS, who's not only been recognized with Women in Medicine Award, but also recently received the Arkansas Nursing Legacy Award. Jean, pleasure to meet you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Girl, you got all the accolades, all the degrees. I mean, for those of us who are not in the medical field, why is research for women and heart disease so crucial?
It's really important because, as you have said earlier, that it is the #1 killer of women. In fact, it kills more women than breast cancer and lung cancer combined. And we need more women to recognize how important it is to pay attention to their bodies, as your previous guest said, so that they can identify some of these symptoms. And we cannot identify symptoms unless we do research. And our research that we were able to complete identified many different symptoms that women had, and some similar ones that they have with men when they have heart attacks.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing the heavy lifting, you're doing the hard work for us. Let's talk about some of these common symptoms that you've encountered.
Well, first of all, with men, you think of chest pain, crushing chest pain, they fall on the floor. That's typical how it is in the movies. With women, it can be much more subtle than that. Sometimes women don't even have what they would describe as chest pain. They may describe it maybe as a pressure. It may just be shortness of breath. They may just have some anxiety. But usually we see shortness of breath, indigestion, anxiety. Those are some of the typical symptoms that we will see: nausea and vomiting.
Jean, that's fascinating to me, and really important information, ladies out there, because again, I do think we hear a lot about that crushing chest pain, that shortness of breath, you know, maybe your arm tingling, what have you, but for women it may come as indigestion.
Yes.
You know, all right, well, that's important. Okay, so for us women in particular, I would imagine there are some specific actions that we as women could be taking to, you know, keep ourselves healthy and on track, as opposed to maybe what the men might do. What would you suggest for the women?
Well, for one thing, women do most of the cooking in the household. Usually, not always. I don't want to upset men either, but so it is important for them to know how to cook healthy so that we have healthier lifestyles, and they can have healthier meals not only for the children, for the men, and for themselves. So that is one thing. But we know that most heart disease is preventable, and so if we eat better, that is one way that we can really take care of our health. One thing I would say too is to prevent it, not only to eat better, and I try to have at least, I would say 1 to 2 meals a week without any meat. So I try to have meatless meals and make them fun. You can do different kinds of tacos and things like that. The other thing you can do is to try to increase your activity. The American Heart Association for a long time has said choose to move. And I love to talk to women's groups and say, how many of you try to park as close as you can at a grocery store or wherever you're shopping, and they will always laugh and say yes. One thing you can do is park as far away as you can and say, this is for my heart. This is, I'm choosing to move. It's just as simple as trying to get more activity. So that's one of the main things that we can do, is increase activity, eat better. Certainly you don't want to be smoking. We very much, if you can't do anything else, please quit smoking. Yeah. That just is the #1 thing that you can do. And we tell people many different things that they can do. We said choose to move, increase activity, eat better, don't smoke. We want you to have normal blood pressure, to know your numbers, your cholesterol level, etc. Don't be overweight. We go through this whole litany sometimes of things that they should not do, and people get overwhelmed. And I'd say choose one thing. If you are overweight, try to lose weight, and you could do that by increasing your activity. If you are a smoker, choose that to quit and try to get help with that. So don't try to do all of these things at the same time, or you may get discouraged. But get some, build up your confidence, change one thing, then you can add another thing.
Jean, again, incredible information. A lot of times people might just think this is common sense stuff, but it's not. I mean, we get busy as women. We're running households, we're working, what have you. I would also add going to the doctor once a year for your checkups. Is there anything specific that we should address with our doctors on those yearly visits?
Absolutely. You want to know your numbers. They should be running a lipid panel to find out what your cholesterol level is. There's a good cholesterol, there's a bad cholesterol. You want to know what those are. You also want to know what your blood pressure is, because you want to keep that in a normal range. Make sure you pay attention to yourself. One of the things that we didn't talk about for symptoms, early warning symptoms before women actually have a heart attack, is unusual fatigue. And I like women to really report to their doctors if they are having any kind of unusual fatigue. And this isn't just being tired at the end of the day. I mean, some women could not make a bed without sitting down to rest. They'd make one side and then make the other side. That's the kind of unusual fatigue that you can experience prior to ever developing symptoms of an actual heart attack. Those are the things that you need to report to your doctor.
Well, Jean, I appreciate your demeanor. It's very calming. Obviously, your life's work has been in researching and caring for our hearts. I do know that this can be a very scary topic, but having these kinds of conversations, I think, takes a lot of the fear out of it, and positivity for better outcomes. Well, I appreciate your time and your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We need women to be aware that heart disease is the #1 killer. Unfortunately, statistics show that it's not, this awareness is not increasing shrinking as much as it did early on in like the early 2000s, and we've actually started to see a decline. So shows like yours and featuring this is so important, so thank you for doing it.
Absolutely, girl power. If you'd like to learn more about women's heart health and discover some important facts about heart disease in women, be sure to visit GoRedForWomen.org. Now up next, Dr. Miriam Sadif joins us to explore how mental health impacts women's heart health. Stay tuned as we discuss the link between stress, depression, and cardiovascular disease. Stay with us. You're watching Arkansas Style.
You're watching Arkansas Style on KARK.
Welcome back to Arkansas Style. We've already learned how crucial heart health is for women, but did you know that mental health plays a major role in cardiovascular risk? Studies show that women are more sensitive to stress and depression, and these factors can increase the risk of heart disease. To dive deeper into this connection, we're joined by Dr. Miriam Sadif, a non-invasive cardiologist with the Central Arkansas Veterans Healthcare System, who's here to share how mental health struggles can affect heart health and what we can do to protect both our minds and our hearts. Hearts and minds, they're connected. So, doctor, let's talk about some of the risk factors to start our conversation.
For sure. So there are some well-known risk factors that we already talked about, which include high blood pressure, high cholesterol, tobacco use, obesity, unhealthy diet. And then there's one risk factor which is less commonly known, which is mental illness. And with time, studies have shown again and again that the prevalence of this risk factor has been increasing in our communities.
So what are some indicators of mental health disorders, especially in women, that we should be aware of?
So the indicators would be to, first of all, getting to the right diagnosis. So there are a couple of main broad categories of mental health disorders that everybody should know about. First one are depressive disorders, more commonly known as major depression, bipolar disorder. There could be stress-related disorders such as generalized anxiety, phobias, just being very nervous when you're outside, but that nervousness is more than your usual that your friend might experience. There's post-traumatic stress disorders, which are usually defined as disorders that happen or the stress-related symptoms that happen after a traumatic event. Or it's chronic stress syndromes, where somebody has chronic emotional stress, which has been happening for a very long time and it's more than your normal.
Yeah, I mean, very, very significant mental health disorders there. Each one on their own can be debilitating, but it does impact our hearts. In what ways?
So depression and anxiety disorders are known to increase your risk of heart disease by about 2 times. So if you have depression or anxiety, you're at risk of increasing the development of cardiovascular disease, so having a heart attack or having an episode of heart failure, which is new, or the old ones, or even having stroke by 2 times compared to the women who do not experience these symptoms. So this is pretty significant when you look at it.
Yeah, so you heard Michelle Rupp
Yes.
at the top of the show talk about how her heartbeat was really, really fast, and they were correlating that to anxiety. This is not what we're necessarily talking about here. These two things can be very, very much connected in an important way. Can you address that? Because, you know, Michelle said that, you know, she was just kind of written off as, you know, just anxiety.
For sure, I think making that distinction is extremely important, because what Michelle had was Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, which is an electrical issue. So if caught in the right moment, you have evidence on an EKG which shows that you have that extra electrical pathways, which then you can go to a lab and get worked up, as she did. However, with anxiety, you will have all the workup will be normal. So your echocardiogram will be normal, your EKG will be normal, and usually we do end up doing an event monitor on females who come in having palpitation, anxiety disorder in our practice, just to make sure that we do not have atrial fibrillation, Wolff-Parkinson-White, atrial flutter, or just extra beats, which we call PVCs or premature atrial contractions, just to rule out the dangerous stuff. Then we also perform an electrocardiogram of the heart, in clinic just to make sure we do not see that in that moment. We have echocardiograms, which look at the structure of the heart, making sure that the heart itself is normal. So after we have taken care of all of those main issues, just making sure that the heart looks okay, then we can move towards anxiety and try to account for their life experiences which may be contributing.
All right, so let me try to summarize this, and you will correct me if I'm wrong. But again, going back to Michelle's story, if in fact you are feeling anxious, your heart is racing, would it be appropriate to say that you would encourage people to go and have their heart checked out one way or the other, because there will be some clear answers whether it is just anxiety or it is heart related?
Absolutely.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. I mean, it's so much information, and again, with women, we carry a lot of responsibility in our daily lives, and we quietly do it.
Yes.
And I find that a lot of women will suffer in silence when they shouldn't. And again, going back to Michelle's example of her heart palpitations, that racing heart, and correlating it to anxiety. Mental health is important. We want to address both the mind and the heart.
Exactly.
Yes?
Yes, agreed.
Oh gosh. Well, thank you so much. I've enjoyed learning a lot about this very
you.
important topic. Yes, very much. For more information on how mental health affects heart health and to learn more about the Go Red for Women initiative, be sure to visit goredforwomen.org. Now, still ahead, we're uncovering the impact of heart disease on minority communities. Naomi Fletcher joins us next to discuss the challenges, risks, and steps we can take to address this issue. Stay tuned. You're watching Arkansas Style.
You're watching Arkansas Style on KARK.
Welcome back to Arkansas Style. Heart disease affects all of us, but for minority communities, the impact can be even more severe. Black and Hispanic populations face higher rates of heart disease, often due to a mix of risk factors and health inequities. To help us understand how we can address these challenges, we're joined by Naomi Fletcher. Naomi, thanks for being here.
Hi.
You look beautiful, by the way.
Thank you, so do you.
Okay, so can you help me understand the difference between the minority risk factors and the general communities?
Yes, minority communities tend to have slightly higher risk factors for a variety of reasons. Part of it is socioeconomic, part of it is diet, and then part of it is also just part of being a minority.
Okay, again, important differences, but this show, I hope, will have some positive spin on this, because again, it can be a very scary topic to talk about. You do have some positives that have happened as you have studied these differences. Let's cover some of those.
Yes, so one of the things that we have to remember is that we do have some control over the way that our lives go. So when we're thinking about health disparities, we can remember that we may be part of a minority group, but that doesn't determine what exactly is going to happen to us. So things that we can control are our blood pressure, our cholesterol levels, our weight, and the way that we react to stress. So it's very hard to change the overall environment around us, but that small environment that we're within, that's what we can control, and that's what we can work on.
Yeah, I mean, folks at home, let's control what we can control. Some of these small changes can make big differences. Here's a big disparity that I think needs to be addressed. Again, in these communities, socioeconomic factors hold them back as well. How does that impact them?
So it impacts them in several ways. Number one, they tend to have jobs that are paying less money, which means that they may not have quite as much money for insurance or good health care. And then the way that they're treated within the hospital environment can also be a little bit different. So it just takes a lot of multiple factors to work through that. For one thing, in hospitals, someone who's on public assistance should not be treated any differently from someone who has private health care. So keeping that in mind, that it's just a person that's in front of you, what type of insurance they have doesn't matter. And then for those who are in lower income brackets, sometimes thinking about just the way that you're going about your day. Maybe walking a little bit more instead of driving or riding the bus. Maybe eating a little bit better. We often think that healthy food is so much more expensive, but there are ways to get around that. And then also making sure that we're keeping track, that we're making those doctor's visits, making sure that we understand what the doctor tells us when we do visit with them, so that we know what's going on.
Yeah, a lot of good information there. Pun intended here, but it hurts my heart to think of somebody who is already down, whose, financial situation may be a big struggle and a burden, that they would need to go to the hospital, get health care, and be treated any differently. We just can't have that because human beings are human beings. We want them to be treated all the same, so we don't want that problem. This is another interesting fact, is that cultural differences can play a part in our health care and our heart health. How does that affect us?
So another way to say that is cultural competency. And cultural competency involves knowing a little bit, at least, about the background of the culture of the person that you're talking to or dealing with. Some of the ways that we can alleviate some of the friction in that is, number one, if there are interpreters available, using an interpreter. If you don't know something about that person's culture, ask. For example, some people don't eat pork because of religious reasons. Some of them don't eat pork because of other reasons. Some of them may be vegan, and you may not know that. And so knowing a little bit about, at least a little bit about various cultures will help with cultural competency. And then trying to see kind of where they're coming from. Sometimes trying to use, instead of a lot of the very big jargon that we tend to know as doctors, using, if you can't explain it to a fifth grader in 30 seconds, maybe that's not a good thing for you to do in the treatment room.
Again, this is kind of a silent factor, I don't think. It's not like you wear a t-shirt, I don't eat pork, for example, but to be sensitive to people and their backgrounds can make all the difference in the world in these really important conversations. You touched on a few of the practical steps that we can take. Can we review some of those? Because I feel like those are really sometimes considered common sense, but can make a big difference.
So it was actually covered a little bit by some of your earlier guests, but number one, exercise. It doesn't have to be going to the gym. It can be taking a walk in the park, and you're walking as fast as you can comfortably, and you're trying to get your heart rate up. So it's not that you're walking so fast you can't breathe, but if you can have a conversation like we are right now, you need to walk a little bit faster or do some other type of exercise. With your diet, trying to get at least 3 to 5 vegetables a day. A lot of people think that's a lot, but there are easy ways to put that in. For example, if you normally have eggs for breakfast, maybe having eggs and a piece of fruit, and raw fruit is the best. And then for lunch, you can still have your meat, but then have 2 or 3 vegetables along with it. It doesn't have to be a salad, it can be some other vegetable that you like. And then I tell people, a lot of people ask me, what is the best exercise that I can do? The best exercise is the exercise that you actually will do. If you don't like to walk, you can swim, you can bike, do something that's just keeping you active for at least 15 to 20 minutes about every single day.
Well, Naomi, you're a beautiful spokesperson, and I appreciate all this really important information. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
To explore some of the statistics, learn about their impactful initiatives, or join the nation of lifesavers around the world, visit heart.org/Black History Month. Now, after the break, we're talking to State Representative Lee Johnson about a new bill that could save lives in Arkansas schools by implementing cardiac emergency response plans. Don't miss it. You're watching Arkansas Style.
You're watching Arkansas Style on KARK.
Welcome back to Arkansas Style. If you're just tuning in, we're covering some important topics surrounding women's heart health. But now we're turning our focus to a critical issue that could impact every school in Arkansas. State Representative Lee Johnson has introduced a new bill aimed at improving cardiac emergency response plans in schools. These plans are designed to save lives by ensuring that schools are prepared to handle cardiac emergencies with trained teams and clear procedures. Join us as we learn more. Representative Johnson, thank you for being here.
Yeah, happy to be here, Nicole.
Okay, well, first of all, what do you do for your day job?
Yes, so when I'm not a legislator, I'm a practicing emergency medicine physician. I work in Fort Smith and Van Buren at the Baptist hospitals there. And so when I get a chance, I come down here and be a legislator too. And it's been a great opportunity to kind of balance both.
Well, on behalf of Arkansas, thank you for all your many disciplines. But this is why you're an expert in what we are calling CERP. What is CERP?
So CERP is a cardiac emergency response plan. These are plans that we've instituted in schools. They're a written plan in how to respond to a cardiac arrest, right? So these can be standalone plans, or they can be plans that are incorporated into a school's standing emergency plan. You know, we have fire drills in schools and tornado drills. You could think of these as heart attack drills, right, that we implement.
All right, I feel like this might be an obvious question, but sometimes it's not. Why is this important to have a written plan for this?
Well, you know, we know that if in a cardiac arrest, the quicker you respond, the better the chances of survival. And these plans have proven to be effective in improving survival rates up to 50%. And so having a plan where you're ready, where you know to call 911, you know where your AED, your automated external defibrillators are, these are important steps in getting to someone early so that you can save a life.
Yeah, I mean, Representative Johnson, I mean, the fact that you're implementing this, I mean, folks at home, think about the last time you were in an emergent situation. You're panicked, you're discombobulated, you don't know your left from your right, but having a written plan to go to really gives you that directive, calms you down and gives you kind of a checklist on how to follow this. But you're doing this for schools in particular. How do you see this impacting the students?
Well, you know, there's around 23,000 students annually that will have some sort of cardiac arrest event. Most of the time those kids are going to be at the school when this happens. We have some good laws in place to keep AEDs at sporting events, but up to 60% of these collapses happen away from sporting events. So these are good, important steps for us to be prepared in case a child collapses. Additionally, you know, there are teachers at school and parents, and many times the school is the community focus for events, and so a cardiac arrest can happen anywhere outside the hospital. There's around 350,000 cardiac arrests that happen outside hospitals every year, and so the more prepared we can be in all places to react to those events, the more chances we have to save lives.
Whoa, I mean, those are some big numbers. You can definitely understand the breadth and depth of this problem here. In particular, when we're talking about students in schools, to the ones that are suffering from a cardiac situation, do they have underlying health problems that have already been known?
So a lot of times, no. A lot of times they may have a predisposing genetic condition that's gone undetected. Many times these are athletes who have been healthy previously, but being prepared, again, these are interventions that can save lives. You know, there are very few acute interventions that can really take a person who is not breathing and bring them back to life, right? And placing these external defibrillators at the right time in the right place can truly in the moment save a life, and they're very simple to use once you've trained and prepared, and so this is a real opportunity for people to be in a position to make a really important intervention.
Yeah, I think people see that piece of equipment on the wall, they're not even sure exactly what it's for or how to use it. I feel like your bill is going to help address a lot of these things that people are not aware of, yes?
Yeah, that's the hope, right? It's a scary looking device, but really it's very simple to use, and once you've practiced and are familiar with it, it's not hard at all.
Okay, well, it's been a while since I took my Constitution test, and I know you're proposing this bill.
Yes.
What is the process and the timeline for this?
So this bill is setting an education committee. It's waiting on a fiscal impact. Once the fiscal impact returns, we will hear it in the House Education Committee. I'm hoping to present it next week. And then if it comes out of the House Committee, it'll be heard on the House floor to the Senate, their House Committee, their Senate Committee, but to the Senate floor, and then hopefully to the governor's desk. So the full turnaround would be around 2 weeks from the time it's first introduced. So hopefully in a few weeks we can be talking about a bill signing, which would be great.
Well, please invite me.
Of
I would
course,
love to see that.
absolutely.
Wouldn't that be exciting?
Yes.
I would love to see it. I'd like to fast track it. Let's just call Governor Sanders.
We text her right now. She's a lovely lady, and I'm sure she would try everything she could to help us.
Well, really incredible that you're aware of this and you're proposing this for our state and for our students in particular. How beautiful. Yeah. I want to put a positive spin on all of this heart talk. As a physician, is there some sort of a positive note you could leave our women viewers out, with?
Well, the positive thing I had today is advocacy, right? This Go Red program partnering with Miss America, there were 70 young women showed up at the Capitol today, all advocating for an important issue, right? I think it's great to see that this kind of intervention spurs a lot of times from grassroots movements, right? And so encouraging women to know that, hey, you can make a difference in our state, you can make a difference in our country through advocacy programs like Go Red. I think it's been great.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to come visit us over here at Arkansas Style, and thank you for all your efforts.
Of course, thank you.
Continued success.
Yes, thank you.
To learn more about this new bill and how you can support the effort to improve cardiac emergency response plans in school, visit arkansashouse.org/district/47. Now up next, we're diving into another vital initiative. The Nation of Lifesavers will explore how families in Central Arkansas can learn CPR and make a life-saving difference. Stay with us to find out how easy it is to help save a life with just a few simple steps. You're watching Arkansas Style.
You're watching Arkansas Style on KARK.
Welcome back to Arkansas Style. The American Heart Association's Nation of Lifesavers is on a mission to double the survival rate of cardiac arrest by 2030. And today we're talking about how you can get involved. From online courses to CPR kits, there are plenty of ways for families in Central Arkansas to learn hands-only CPR and be ready to help in emergencies. Nikki Smith, Executive Director of the AHA Central Arkansas, is here to show us just how simple it is to make a life-saving difference. Nikki, great to see you.
So nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you. A couple years ago, you taught me the hands-only CPR.
Correct.
And
you're going to show me today, right?
It's so easy to do. I mean, it really is.
It really is.
You broke it down like that.
Yeah.
So first of all, let's start, kind of at the top again. What is cardiac arrest?
So cardiac arrest is an electrical thing that happens with your heart where your heart stops beating. And when you're going to cardiac arrest, you're not getting any oxygen to your brain, to any of your internal organs. So that's why CPR has to happen within those seconds of that cardiac arrest happening, and for a survival rate.
And what specifically is CPR doing? Because I feel like if people visualize why they're doing this, it might seem obvious, but it might not be.
Well, when you're pressing down in the middle of the chest, and remember that you want to lock your hands and you want to have your arms straight and you want to press as hard as you can with the palm of your hand. You are and you want to go at least 2 inches down, and that might mean you're going to hear a cracking sound. That means you're doing it right. Mm-hmm. That means you might be cracking a rib, but you're getting the oxygen that they need into the body so that you can revive that person.
Yeah, I mean, folks at home, really think about this, because what you are doing is you are physically beating that heart for this person whose heart has stopped. And imagine you're pulsating that blood throughout the entire body to keep all the organs and to keep the brain nourished. Blood supply. So when you are performing hands-only CPR, you're not using your mouth anymore. You're just intertwining your hands, and you're using the heel of your hand to make your heart actually make their heart beat and push that blood. Right. Nikki, there's a specific focus this go around with children and cardiac arrest.
Correct.
Can you address that?
So not everyone knows this, but 23,000 children every year experience a cardiac event. About 40% of that happens in schools, which is another reason why we're doing our CPR in school program. But it is something that affects more children than I think people realize. And that leads us to Nation of Lifesavers, the campaign that we have. And we are encouraging families to have at least one, actually we'd like it to be 2 now, 2 members of every household to know hands-only CPR, because that skill that you're learning could save a loved one in your family.
Yeah, it definitely could. We hear those stories, and we want them to have positive outcomes. And
Exactly.
if you have this skill, very simple skill to use,
Right.
literally will save somebody's life.
Right.
Okay, this was an interesting fact that you taught me the last visit, is bystander influence.
Right.
What does this mean?
So we are trying to get the bystanders off the sideline and taking action. So if you know hands-only CPR, we want you to start doing that CPR. I think it's about 46%, and I'm sorry, I don't remember, about 46% of the bystanders will not perform CPR because they don't know, or they're afraid they're going to hurt the person, or there's just other elements on why they're not doing it. So, yes, go ahead.
Another disparity is between men and women. Bystanders are more apt to help men.
Yes. I think because of the proximity of where you are pressing your hands on the woman, there's concerns that there will be embarrassment. And as a woman, I would rather you perform the CPR than to not perform the CPR. And that goes with AEDs too. With an AED, you will have to disrobe the top portion of the person so that you're able to put the pads on to do perform the AED.
Yeah, that AED is that piece of equipment that you may walk by and you not even realize what it is, but it will save a life when
Right.
you use it. There are 2 important steps to saving a life. Let's cover those. That
was a great lead-in. So as soon as you recognize that the person's not breathing, you should start compressions. You should call 911 and ask someone to get the AED if there's one in the building. So it's actually 3 steps, but start compressions, call 911, and get the AED.
Okay. As we talked at the top of the segment, there's lots of resources out there. So if you're at all curious about even learning CPR, there's ways to do this on your own, yes?
You can go to our website, heart.org, and click on CPR. There's videos you can watch. You can find our CPR training centers that are here in the city and sign up to get certified for the training. But you can always call our office and we can help you find other resources if you need it.
Well, thank you for giving us the confidence to do this. I appreciate seeing you again.
It's so nice to see you. Thanks.
Again, it only takes a few minutes to learn a life-saving skill that could make all the difference in an emergency. To learn about the Nation of Lifesavers initiative or find a CPR class near you, visit heart.org. We'll be right back after this. You're watching Arkansas Style.
You're watching Arkansas Style on KARK.
Thank you to everyone who joined us today. We're so grateful to the team up with the American Heart Association to bring you these incredible topics, and we hope you found them as inspiring as we did. As we wrap up, remember to wear your best red today to honor the women in your life and show support for women's heart health on this special day. To dive deeper into any of the topics we discussed, visit heart.org or goredforwomen.org and keep the conversation going. And before we go, be sure to follow us on social media or visit our website for clips of today's show, whether you missed something or just want to rewatch it for a second time. We will see you all again next time with love. Mwah.
For watching Arkansas Style with Nicole Neiman. Furniture provided by Hanks Fine Furniture. Nicole's wardrobe coordinated by Style Me Stephanie.